It was dark by the time Bill arrived at Vokes's cottage, having seen his father safely home. He'd left Blackjack staring into the fire, sipping on a tankard of Stocky, the black beer he favored. Unusually, Blackjack had spurned the offer of a pint in the Cock and Bull, and Bill had used the opportunity to call in on Vokes on his way into town. The old man had almost jumped out of his beard when he opened the door, and had only calmed down when he realized it was Bill who was standing on his doorstep. It was another puzzle to add to the compendium. After all, who else would be visiting Vokes after dark? It was almost as if the old man was living in fear. Bill now watched as Vokes rummaged amongst the scrolls in the section of his library labeled Maps. He was presently standing one-legged on a milking stool and straining to reach to the farthest depths of the highest shelf where, by laws that have yet to be explained by even the most esteemed of physics professors, everything useful ends up.
"Got it,"
he said. Vokes stepped back, forgetting that he was standing on a stool, and his left leg, the one that had nothing but a foot and a half's air beneath it, slid sideways, taking the old man with it. Bill leapt out of his chair and caught the wizard as he fell backwards. Momentum being what it is, Bill ended up pinned beneath the wizard, desperately trying to keep his mouth shut as his face disappeared into a mass of greasy locks.
I'm so sorry,"
Vokes said as he struggled to disentangle himself.
"Be a good lad and pass me my stuff, will you?"
Bill wiped his face and sprang to his feet. He took the wizard's ancient staff from its place by the fireside and held it down to Vokes as he lay on the floor.
"Oh, just drop it, if you don't mind,"
Vokes said. Puzzled, Bill laid the stick beside the old man, who grabbed it and hauled himself to his feet. "Did you find the map?" asked Bill, opting to go with the flow.
"What?"
Bill suppressed a sigh. Vokes was a genius, but he was also very forgetful, especially if distracted.
"The map you were looking for, of the 9 realms."
Vokes looked around, spotted the scroll in his hand, and looked surprised.
"Oh, yes, of course. Something to do with your mother, I believe."
He took the scroll over to a table already full of papers and simply rolled it out on the top of them so that it covered almost the entire surface, the objects beneath suggesting an entirely false topography.
"Now then, where are we?
Vokes stabbed his finger onto a small cross around a third of the way from the scroll's left-hand edge. Bill leant in and squinted.
"Upton Mordit. If that's where the town is, then this clump of trees represents Clancy's Wood, and so Dingley Dell must be near its northern boundary."
The wizard watched closely, perching his spectacles on the end of his nose and squinting at the tiny legends on the map.
"Indeed, although you mustn't take the map too literally. Recording the less, shall we say, valuable areas was entrusted to the agents of a state, and many of their measurements were taken from the roof of a speeding coach. Broadly speaking, however, the proportions and relative positions don't stray too far from the actuality."
Bill stood up and surveyed the full extent of the map. Not for the first time in his life, he felt utterly insignificant, although not on this occasion because of his occupation.
"And is the whole area ruled by the Varmans?"
The wizard shook his head.
"The Varman Empire is the largest in this part of the world, and this map shows only its northwesternmost corner, but there are independent kingdoms on its periphery. However, your mother couldn't possibly have come from any of them. She was far too educated. I knew her, you see. She used to come and visit me when she was married to your father." "You knew my mother?"
squeaked Bill, who had just swallowed a mouthful of hot tea.
Why haven't you ever told me? You've been teaching me for years."
Nomenclature Vokes took the cup of tea out of the shaking hands of his pupil and gestured to a pair of armchairs in front of an unlit fire. With a snap of his fingers, flames sprung to life.
"Perhaps we had better sit down. I believe it's time."